or are we in it, trying to see what we can do, what we can learn, how we can help, how we can be part of the story in a very meaningful way? And I guess our scholars reflecting today with us are trying to help us to do that in their own effort of having taken time to prepare for this presentation, which is, I'm sure, part of their own longer journey of having become a scholar, having gone through, my dear students, the very same process of having completed plus 12 with interest in sociology or in political science, having done the graduation as a political science or sociology student, and now having reached the level of being a PhD scholar, having done, of course, the master's as well or MPhil as well. So, a process of study, a process of reading the reality of the society, taking one to say, here I am able to share my thoughts, my deeper perceptions, my reflections with this group of fellow travelers, with this sense of let us welcome them and let us be prepared to listen to them. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Father, for your wonderful words, and definitely what you said just now in sharing one's experiences in such a platform provided. I think we will take it to our heart and learn from these experiences, not only from a very academic perspective, but it will also serve a purpose for our day-to-day activities. Because the essence of education is not merely limited to the textual understanding, but rather it travels far beyond than that. So having said that, before we proceed further with our session today, I would request our audience to kindly turn off their audios as well as the videos, because it might just interfere with while our speakers are providing their lectures. The other thing is that if you've got any queries, I request you to drop it through our chat box, which we shall take it at the end of the session once the speaker is completed, has done with his work. So let me just take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Srini Chombe. The theme on which he will be reflecting today will be on COVID-19 pandemic lessons for the fragile economy of Darjeeling district. Mr. Srini Chombe is an assistant professor in the Department of Economics, Darjeeling Government College. He completed his BA Economics from Sri Ram College of Commerce, Delhi. He is currently pursuing his PhD from North Bengal University. I welcome Mr. Srini Chombe to take the platform.
Good morning to everyone present here on this online platform, and thank you, Selection College, for inviting me to speak today. Since my network is very erratic and I've already lost connection twice since I joined, I think I would rather switch off my video so that I don't lose connection anymore in the future. So I hope that's fine with you all.
Yes, that's fine, sir.
So right at the outset, I want to state that there is no direct link between the virus and the economic activity. So whatever the link and the relationship that has been playing out, it has been mediated through the policy response to tackle that virus. So, and that policy response is the lockdown that we all experienced from the month of March to the end of May. So today I want to talk about the disastrous impact and the class biasness of this policy on the economically marginalized sections of our society, and then look at the development model of Darjeeling district and see what lessons we can learn from this pandemic for the economy of our region. We got into this pandemic with an economy that was already in a tailspin. So the growth rates as well as the socio-economic indicators were worsening even before, in the period before the pandemic. So since 2016, that is the year of when demonetization took place, what we witnessed was there was a slowdown, there has been a slowdown in the growth rate. And as well as other socio-economic indicators like the unemployment rate, which was highest in 45 years. And we had this data that was out and that was linked to the media on the consumer expenditure, which recorded a decline in the household consumer expenditure for the first time since the independence. So, what I'm trying to say, we were already in a dire strait before the pandemic. And what this policy response did in the form of the lockdown is that it aggravated the economic miseries and the hardships of the most marginalized and the most vulnerable section of society. And the second thing that it did was it kind of made them visible to the media. And this is very surprising because if the president, if the actor who passed away recently, the Bollywood actor who passed away recently, and the kind of media coverage that he has been getting, had he passed away in the month of, say, March or April, would media have highlighted or focused on the plight of the migrant workers as they did then? So, nonetheless, those heartbreaking videos and visuals did kind of make a lot of Indians realize about their class privilege and as well as the struggles and the economic hardships of the poor and the underprivileged. The other thing it did was it kind of triggered a conversation on the informal economy, although sadly it didn't become one of a dominant national conversation for a long time. So this policy response of lockdown, it was done with complete disregard to the lived reality of the last sections of the Indian society, and as well as complete disregard to the state of economic mess that we were in before the pandemic. So more than 90% of the India's workforce are involved in informal employment. So informal employment means those kind of employment where there is no written contract, no paid leave, and no social security benefits. So around 45 crore of the workforce that are informal workers with no any kind of social and legal protection were suddenly in a situation when this lockdown was announced, were in a situation where their livelihood was in complete jeopardy. This arbitrary, this draconian and unplanned lockdown, which was announced in 4 hours notice, this was announced in just 4 hours notice, unleashed immense emotional, mental and economic hardships on the migrant laborers in particular, because they had been living far away from their homes, and also because they bear that additional expenditure of paying rent in the cities that they live in. And also, they don't have an access to subsidized food in the form of PDS because most of them have their ration cards back home. So, and this led the migrant workers to start working back home because there was no any kind of support from the government that was forthcoming. Moreover, when the lockdown was announced in March, there were only 400 reported cases, and it was concentrated in few metropolitan cities. The government could have announced localized lockdown of those regions and could have at least given a week's time before going for the nationwide lockdown. However, the health concerns of the rich and the urban class of society made the government turn a blind eye to the precarious economic condition of the poor, most of whom live in the hand-to-mouth kind of condition. The fact that this virus is caste, gender, and class neutral, and as well as it is irreligious, and also because there is no cure for it yet, it posed a greater degree of threat to the health of the rich class of the people, and of course it did to the people in general. However, according to World Health Organization, India reports an annual death of about 2 lakh people due to tuberculosis every year. And we haven't seen that kind of response with that kind of urgency to tackle this, because most of the people who die are poor and because they cannot afford a treatment for it. And obviously the rich would obviously afford a treatment for it. So what happened is that we during this pandemic, what we saw was that the idea that some lives matter more than the others in India became even more true and stark. And also it now turns out that it was never about lives versus livelihood, but it was about lives and lives. That is, it was about the lives of the rich and the lives of the poor. And we now have the official figure that has been out in the public domain to tell us about the impact of this pandemic lockdown on the economy. And we know that the economy contracted, and the contraction was the highest among the G20 nations, and as well as highest since the quarterly figures started being published in 1996. However, what this official figure does not tell us is more important. The informal sector, let me reiterate it again, which contributes about more than 90% of the employment in our economy, and as well as about 50% of the GDP of our economy, is not surveyed while calculating the GDP. Their numbers are simply extrapolated based on the growth rates recorded in the corresponding formal sector. So if they report that the formal manufacturing sector registered a growth of 6%, then they extrapolate that the informal sector also registered a growth of 6%. So this kind of invisibility of the informal sector in the official statistics and the data reproduces that India Bharat kind of binary, India Bharat kind of theory, and the pandemic lockdown has been a war on the informal economy, as described by Barbara Harris-White, Barbara Harris-White, Professor Emeritus of University of Oxford. So they are that when this pandemic happened, we are all in this together, and this is going to affect us all equally. However, we need to understand that the ability to recover from this differs across people. Okay, and we've seen, and just to tell you some of the data that we have from Center for CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. What the data says is, since the lockdown that started in April, almost 1.8 crore salary jobs have been lost, and about 9 crore informal work has been lost. Casual work has been lost, because casual work can be recovered easily. So far up to now, what has happened is only 70%, after we unlock the economy, only 70% of the about 70 lakh of the informal work informal jobs hasn't come back. So there has been a complete loss of about 70,000 informal jobs, whereas there has been a loss of about 1.8 crore salary jobs. So, and salary jobs are very difficult to recover. Good. And talking about this impact of the pandemic at the regional level, at the level of our Darjeeling district, again we know that the livelihoods of the people in our region are basically dependent on the three T's. That is tea, timber, and tourism. And all these sectors, the nature of employment in these sectors are basically informal in nature. And in the tea garden, we know that the workers receive wages which is even much below the minimum wage rate. So since we don't have an official data, there is that one of the drawbacks of living in the margins, or living in the peripheries, is that again, in the form of lack of statistical data. So official statistical data. So since we don't have an official statistic data, and since so I cannot tell you the exact magnitude of the effect, but since lockdowns and strikes are no stranger to our region, we can always look at the past impact of the strike on the economy and get a sense of the damage or this lockdown has inflicted. So the figures that I will be quoting from now is from the State's Department of Planning and Statistics, and they are all available in the publication section of the department's website. So we have a GDP data on the state from the period of 2004-5 to 2013-14, and in this period, Darjeeling district, among all the districts of the state, was the fastest growing district. So it was growing at an annual rate of 8%, and it was higher even than the state's growth rate. So the state during this time period was growing at a rate of around 6%. So the second half of this time period, that is from 2008-9 onwards, our region witnessed a lot of disturbances. Our region witnessed a lot of strikes, lockdowns at the drop of the hat, and so this has impacted the economy, and we have figures for it. Based on the data that is officially available, the economy of the Darjeeling district, that is based on that is your net domestic district product at constant price. It comprised of 70% of it comprised of the service sector, and within the service sector, the sectors associated with industry, that is hotels, tourism, restaurants, retail, and the transport sector. So this sector that is associated with the tourism industry comprises about 38% of the total services. And what we see is that we see a correlation between the growth of the tourism industry and the growth of the net domestic district product. And the correlation is very high. That is about 0.9. So it does. So the official figures also does enforce the idea that our economy is a very tourism dependent economy. So what happened to the growth rates after 2008-9 and before 2008-9 in terms of the entire economy of the district? From 2003-4 to 2008-9, the economy was growing at an annual growth rate of about 9.9%. Yeah. And from 2008-9 to 2013-14, the growth rate declined to 7.6%. So in terms of absolute figure, it was an annual loss of about 250 crores. So for 2008-9 onwards up to 2013-14. And in terms of what happened to the tourism industry, so tourism industry before 2008-9 was growing at a rate of 14%, and after 8, 9 up to 2013-14, its growth rate plummeted to about 4%. And in absolute figures, it was about a loss of about 200 crores. So you see, the the lockdowns, and that we had previously because of this movement for statehood, it has resulted it has resulted it has resulted in a loss of around 250 crores per annum. And economy is not something like opening a tap and closing it down. Okay, but now I want to argue why this pandemic specific lockdown would cause more devastation to our economy. Firstly, this figure that I have quoted, it does not take into account the 40-day strike that we had in 2014, and as well as the 70, as well as 107-day strike that we had in 2017. Because there is no data on it, so I cannot tell how much has the economy been affected because of this because of these two lockdowns. On the other hand, what happened earlier and how it is different from now is that the earlier lockdown that we experienced in our region, it led to only supply, it only led to the disruption of the supply. So once the strike was lifted and the sense of normalcy returned to the region, we found tourists coming back to the region. But this time around, it is both the demand side as well as the supply side that has been affected. So most of the people are cutting down on their discretionary income, discretionary expenditure. So the tourism industry will take a time, and its recovery is going to be long, and it's prolonged, and it's going to take quite a time for it to reach the pre-COVID level. Okay, and in terms of impact on people, it's very apparent, and it's very apparent, and I'm sure most of you also know about so many people in your neighborhood who are working in private sector outside have come back. So many people in your neighborhood who are now enrolling in engineering in the work provided under the scheme of Manrega. I know of several of my students from Darjeeling Government College who are working presently in the Manrega scheme, and based on the conversation I have had with some of them, they are very uncertain about completing their education, completing their graduation, because because obviously their parents, whatever they used to earn and whatever little savings they had, it has all been over in this past 4 to 5. So in terms of impact, in terms of the impact of this pandemic on the people and the livelihood, and its impact on the most marginalized sections of the society. One thing that is there is that even though this impact has been used, but it is invisible and it is hidden from our official statistics and data. As I had said earlier, the Darjeeling district is one of the fastest growing districts of the state, and yet those living here will tell that it does not feel like one. We have serious water crisis, which is very unfortunate because it is such a basic necessity like air, and also because the region is located in the eastern Himalayan region, which receives substantial rainfall, and as well as has several perennial Himalayan rivers flowing through it. Physical infrastructure like roads and the forms of digital connectivity is very poor in the hills. The infrastructure, the health infrastructure is again very poor. And according to the official report titled "The Database on Labor and Employment 2014-15," Darjeeling district recorded the highest unemployment rate of 7.7% among all the districts of the state, and the next district with the second highest population rate was Birbhum, and its not population but unemployment rate was Birbhum, and its rate was about 3%. So you see that the unemployment rate of Darjeeling district is almost twice the unemployment rate of a district that has recorded the second highest unemployment rate. So in this context, I would like to talk about the economic development of the economic development model of the district and try to cite reasons why it generates a sense of economic powerlessness in spite of the fact that the district is the fastest growing district of the state. The two economic development models shaping the economy of the Darjeeling district are development based on devolution from the state and the central government, and the second is development those that are based on natural resources. Both these economic models of development are based on a theory and as well as backed by empirical evidence that shows that these models of development lead to worst economic outcomes for the country or the region that adopted. Okay. And the reason is that the economy that receives, in terms of a country, we call it an aid from the foreign country, and in terms of within the country, we call it the redistributive resource transfer. That is the devolution of funds from the upper tier government to the lower tier government. So when a country or a region depends on the funds or depends on this kind of aid or depends on this kind of devolution, what it creates is that it creates a sense of resource dependency, and it provides no incentive for the country or the region receiving it to develop their own tax base or institutions in general. The second model of development that is based on natural resources is based on the theory of resource curves, which states that the countries or the region with a higher share of natural resources have higher deprivations, inequality, and experience deindustrialization. Also, such economies have lower freedom and are generally found in an authoritarian regime. So you have countries like Angola, Venezuela, Argentina, and several other countries of Africa that are a classic case of your resource curves. Because it goes against economic wisdom that the higher the more the natural resource a country has, the more better the development outcomes it would have. But what has been the experience of the countries with the higher natural resources has been just the opposite. So even in our country, so if you look at the resource-rich region like Jharkhand, like Chhattisgarh, and look at the socio-economic indicators, they are negatively correlated. So resource curves operate through three channels. First is that the exploitation of natural resources, it generates rent, and that such rent-seeking behavior leads to increased corruption and concentration of wealth in the hands of the few. It crowds out manufacturing sector as all the focus is directed towards the resource sector, and as a result, we have deindustrialization. It makes the economy more fragile and vulnerable, as the shocks to this dominant resource sector will have repercussions across the economy. So, the two models that I discussed right now, it kind of fits perfectly the story of Darjeeling. It perfectly fits the Darjeeling's growth story. So, in terms of the devolution of funds from the center and the state, we have the Borderline Territorial Council, Gorkhaland GTA, Gorkhaland Territorial Administration, which is a kind of a semi-autonomous body, and you know, and it's been tasked with the responsibility of developing the region, and how much money they receive and how it is spent, we have no idea. Okay, and also, in terms of generating our own resources, there has been very little progress on it. Of late, because the political space of Darjeeling is very competitive, so we see that there's some kind of investment that is happening in the infrastructure of Darjeeling. With the beautification of Chaurasta, with the way the garbage has been the way the garbage system, the garbage collection and handling system has been put in place. So we see there is some kind of utilization of these funds. But we should not forget that the agitation that happened in 2017, it was triggered basically because the state government was demanding the audit of the GTA accounts. Okay, and this second model based on development on natural resources. Again, this kind of fits the Darjeeling economy perfectly. So our three main pillars of the economy, that is tourism, tea, and timber, they're all natural resources. So the kind of tourism we have is basically ecotourism. People come to Darjeeling not for adventure tourism or not for any kind of other thing, but just to enjoy the weather, enjoy the aesthetic of the place, which I'm sure it's no longer what it used to be. And again, in terms of tea, you see there Darjeeling tea is one of the most famous tea in the world because of its quality, and the geographical and the land factors and the quality of the land factors contributes to that quality. So what we have seen is that though these three pillars of our economy earns a lot of economic resources, but most of it is getting captured by the few elite, and what is being given or what is being left for the masses of the people is just few breadcrumbs. Okay, and we know about this kind of inequality that exists in Darjeeling. In that kind of in that local language, we say that the kind of the contractor rats that has been taking place in Darjeeling, and this nexus between the contractors and the politicians, it all leads to concentration of wealth in the hands of the few and the marginalization of the large sections of the society. So what this entails is that an economy that is diversified, okay, and not dependent on one particular sector, is more resilient to external shocks and business cycles. This pandemic lockdown and as well as the earlier lockdowns have shown that the last section of the society had to depend on charity to survive when confronted with such kind of lockdown, because the structure and the economic development model of our economy has been such that the fruits of the economic growth are captured by the few elite, and what the rest gets are very meager. At the end of the 107 days of strike, there was one thing that happened, which was the best thing that happened actually. So the state government expressed the intention to have an alternative development path for Darjeeling district, and they formed a committee under the chairmanship of former MLA, and as well as a business summit was held in the heart of town, that is Darjeeling. However, there has been no follow-up on that by the local leaders. And finally, it is time to understand that our economy, which is built on tea, timber, and tourism, they were all initiatives of the they were all initiatives of the colonial government. Okay, and Darjeeling hasn't had Darjeeling hasn't had that kind of a post-colonial development project, and now that we have seen the outcomes of having an economy based on this kind of an economic model, it is time that we push for this post-colonial development project. So I would like to conclude by saying that the lessons that pandemic and the earlier pandemic has taught needs to be taken seriously for economy, because economy is not something it's not something that happens on its own, as most of the mainstream economics would like us to believe that if you have a market and leave everything to the market, then the economy will lead to the most efficient outcomes and as well as highest level of growth. However, that is not the reality. So like you raise a flower, the economy needs to be watered, the economy needs to be raised, and it needs a certain kind of interventions by the state, the certain kind of institutions in place. So it needs, there has to be a planning in place. So I hope we realize that the post pandemic will be new, not just for the not just for the privileged people, but as well as for the economy and the underprivileged people at large. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It was wonderful to hear you talk about the economy of Darjeeling. In relation to what you spoke, I think our viewers have few questions, and I think you would like to answer them. So I will just read it out to
Sure.
you at a time. So one question is stated by Prashant Kharka. I think he's one of our students, and he's basically actually the good thing about him stating this question to you is because he's definitely working on this the economic aspect of Darjeeling Hills with relation to potters. So he's asking, how has COVID-19 economically affected the potters of Darjeeling? So it would be quite
It has
insightful
it
if
has
you could.
affected it has affected them immensely, because there was a complete lockdown of the economy for almost 2 months, and most of the potters of the Darjeeling, they earn incomes because of the business activities that happens in the region. So when you don't have any kind of business activities, since during lockdown only the essential goods were allowed, only the sectors dealing with the essential commodities and services were allowed to open. So the effect on the potters has been very immense, and again it's very difficult for them to recover, because again in terms of services, whatever has been lost because of time, it's very difficult to recover. So the kind of an unsold capacity in the form of, say, your beds, in the form of travel, you cannot again repackage that and sell it. So whatever loss happens due to strikes, due to lockdowns, especially for the service sector, those are permanent loss, and it's very, very difficult to recover from it.
Thank you, sir.
I hope that
We've got
answers your question.
I hope so, sir. We've got another question from Rajavishek Pradhan. He states, sir, the occurrence of political unrests and the outbreak of this recent pandemic has severely affected the economy of the hills. In this context, what are our strengths, or rather alternatives, apart from tourism, through which we can maintain and build a fragile economy?
Uh, I think I forgot to mention this, but uh, our region, as I already said, our region has enough resources, our region has enough revenues, but it is the distribution that is where we need to rectify. And we haven't had elections to the panchayat system since 2000. So a lot of concentration of not just the political power and as well as the economic power has taken place. And so these fruits of growth, if it has to be distributed, we need this kind of institutions in place. So what the state government did was, by forming these boards, forming these development boards, it was a very brilliant move, because it kind of put money into the hands of different people. And that money was, again, even though it's a long run, and we need to have the universal basic income. There has to be that kind of a fund transfer, that kind of a direct cash transfers to each household. Only then, because let's face it, ever since we have been a part of this global neoliberal order, even though we may have had this kind of a higher growth rate, our employment rate hasn't been that impressive. No, absolutely no. Because see, we have four engines of growth. Okay, basically the capitalist economy, demand-driven economy. So if you want more growth in an economy, we need to have more demand in an economy. So the more demand in an economy would come if there are more investment in an economy, if there are more jobs available in an economy. So out of the four engines of growth, one is consumption, other is private investment, third is the government spending, and fourth is the export. So export-led strategy, ever since ever since we've had this great recession, ever since we had the financial crisis of 2008, we have seen the retreat of globalization. And in more recent years, we've seen less of reliance on exports. So this engine is gone. Private consumption, again, I said it depends upon the level of employment, level of income, and we know that the level of unemployment in our country has increased over a period of time. The official data says it's 6.1, which is highest in about 45 years. And investment, again, investment takes place only if the capitalists feel, if they have the expectations that their investment would get them a good return. So only if they feel that there would be a demand for their goods and services that they produce, there would be an investment taking place. So in this case, so when the economy is already in a recession, which we are right now, again, your private consumption is down, your investment is down, your export is down. The only way that can pull us out of this is the government spending. And our government particularly has been very stingy even in this time, and it's been adhering to fiscal discipline, which is again a very ideological thing. So this kind of self-reliance, it cannot pull the economy out of recession, because what we had before the reforms was this kind of self-reliance, it kind of an inward-looking kind of an economy that we had, and that led to a lot of problems, and so we had the reforms. So now coming back to this new kind of self-reliance too, it doesn't really make sense.
Thank you, sir. We have another question. Sir, why the people of Darjeeling is dependent on tourism for their development? How can they be self-dependent?
I don't understand this thing that what is self-dependent. This is again a very, I would say, this reeks of lot of class privilege, because only person whose ancestors have been very rich and who has inherited a lot of wealth can think of becoming self-reliant or self-dependent. Otherwise, look at the employment scenario of a country. Most of it is based on casual labor. Most of it is based on informal employment. Okay, and so uh, I can't see how they can be self-dependent. And why are people dependent on the tourism for development? Because 76 or 77% of our economy is a service-led economy, and from that we have around like 38%, which deals with the tourism industry. So that is the reason why people are dependent, and obviously because of lack of other opportunities as well.
Okay, so adding to that, I would like to ask a question from my side. Uh, that means I might just be wrong, but this is just my perception. Whenever we talk about the hills, when we refer to the hills, the thing which comes to our mind is the Gorkhaland movement, and this question has been often asked to me by people from outside, professors from outside. The denial of the concept of class. So would you say, because out here the question was how can they be self-dependent, and to that query you stated saying that it's a matter about self-privilege as well. So do you recognize that there is a very strong, essence of class division or class privilege, seeing it from the Marxist point of view as well? So would you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think this entire discourse on class has been subsumed and has been dominated by this Gorkhaland discourse. And you know we have this kind of a binary that it's identity or economic development. So there are people who say that if you want a statehood, if you want an identity, so you need to be ready to suffer the economic loss that would incur while pursuing this. But you know that that is again a very privileged position to take. A lot of, again, as I said, a lot of people of our region are based on living on a hand to mouth kind of a situation. So you're absolutely right in what you've just said.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Divyani, student from Salation again. How can we improve the socioeconomic conditions of tea garden laborers at a time like this?
I think the most important thing is, we need to ensure that they get at least the minimum wage rate that they deserve. You know, we've as political parties, across time and across ideologies, have really let down the tea garden and the tea garden workers of a region, because even in today's time, what the wage rate that they get is even below the minimum wage rate. So that itself is very despicable. And just to add to just to add to this, there was this movement that was happening demanding for minimum wages in a tea garden just before the 2017 agitation took place. So this movement that was taking place in a region for demanding minimum wage rate for the tea gardens, it again got consumed by the Gorkhaland movement. So after that,
Thank you, sir. There's a question by Simon Sorov. I think half of the answers is what you've already provided, but still, for the sake of it, if you've missed out any other points, he asks, sir, how will you keep the statement made by our finance minister regarding the drastic fall of GDP, stating that it is an act of God? Can we call it as a government is falling to maintain the economy, and to hide such things, they are coming up with such foolish statements? Secondly, as an economist, what other measures do you suggest to be taken by the government to overcome such downfall?
you're absolutely right. And secondly, I'm not an economist. I'm just a student of economics. I'm just a student of economics. So what the measures that the government can take, and it has already been there in public. So for what they can do is have this kind of urban employment program that we have in the rural level. So because even a lot of people in the urban area has been affected. Okay, and because of the Manrega scheme, a lot of the effect got alleviated in the rural area, and we see a lot of people who are working in this. So we need to have that kind of rural employment program, the urban employment program for the urban region. And I think the other thing that the government needs to do is, the moratorium on the loans. So that moratorium, it, it, it needs to be converted to exemption, because people who have this kind of loans to pay, and there are a lot of people who suffered, who suffered loss of income during this period. They will not be able to pay that. So instead of so the government should exempt them from paying interest for this time period. And there are a lot of other measures and suggestions that have been put forward to the government, but it, the government is not ready to listen to it. And one of the most important and the popular suggestion has been to put money into the hands of the people by doing this kind of a direct cash transfer. Again, government did that initially, but it was a very meager amount, very paltry amount of rupees 500. So the Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee had also insisted on this, but that hasn't happened.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from Rishabh Jha. The present downfall in economy must have been viewed by our Indian economists who are working for the government. Then why did the government launch a policy which had a link with 20% of our GDP, since no such relief can be observed? What is your view, and was there any other substitute of that?
I think the government is more involved in perception management. So this kind of the 20%, the economic package of 20% of GDP was in essence was only about 1.2% of the actual fiscal stimulus, was only about 1.2% of, was only about the addition expenditure was just only about 1.2%. So uh, so again, there was substitute, which a lot of economists across the board, and there was unanimity on this, economists on the left, right, center, that we need to give people money into the hands. And see, it is because of the government these people could not work. So at least they deserve compensation. Okay? And government is in a position to do that, because the central government is the only is the only entity that can borrow from the central bank. So I don't know why they are not doing it. So I think it's they have their own logic, but it's still to be figured out.
Okay, so we have another
So I have
question.
that answers the question.
The other question is, Mr. Lama, would you agree with the fact that the lower segment of the society needs to be addressed and acknowledged?
Exactly. They need to be, most of our cities, most of our economy has been built by the, the labor, by the sweat, blood of this lower segment of the society. And, as I mentioned in my talk, they are even invisible in our statistical data. So, and luckily, they got that kind of a space on the media during this lockdown. But otherwise, they are largely visible, and the government needs to address and acknowledge it.
Thank you, sir. We've got like just two questions left. Sir, do you think that we need a total reconstruction of the economic plan of the hills in order to gain stability? This is from Priyambara Chetri. I guess you were actually talking about how the entire structure functions in the hills previously.
Yeah, exactly. We need to do that and make it, more sustainable environmentally, because we are living in a region that is very prone to earthquakes and other kinds of natural disasters. And tourism, in the long run, it is going to have a diminishing returns, even on the environment front. So we need to reimagine our economy, but when and how it's going to happen, let's leave it to the future.
So if you don't mind, if I would like to add a little bit, a few points to this question. When we talk about restructuring the economic, structure of the hills, or when we talk about why is it that Darjeeling, though it has a potential, is still considered to be, a backward area, though we've got the potential. I would suggest that you read what Tanka Bahadur Subha talks about in his PhD thesis, state ethnicity and development. And out here, by just coming up with a reformation in terms of the economic structure is not enough. The most important thing, which even Tanka Bahadur talks through his work, is that the issue with the hills is that we've got political elites. That's number one. And like what I said, it is highly class structured as well. And the other thing is that even when we come up with particular, reformation or formation of any of structural changes, the most important thing is the not just taking up the responsibility, but it is also about transparency, being transparent, and it needs to function on the model of what Panchayati Raj did talk about, starting from the grassroots. Out here, if you see the hill politics or the socioeconomic structure of the hills, it is mostly to do with the elites. The grassroots have always been, or most probably, not always, but I would say in most of the scenarios, they've always been left out. They've simply been the vote banks. So out here, responsibility and transparency also plays a very dominant role, and keeping in mind the essence of what democracy is all about. So I would like to just add, I wanted to, I hope you did not mind, sir. So
No, I completely concur with you.
Okay. The other question that we have is, what other solutions would you like to suggest to bring the economy of small-scale jobs to standard or balanced economy during the pandemics?
See, Abhijit Banerjee talks about reluctant entrepreneurs. Okay, so most people get into small enterprises because there are no other alternative jobs available. Jobs, and in India, one of the most secure jobs is the government jobs, isn't it? But now we see the government downsizing it. Again, you have reports of asking employees of the banks to go on voluntary retirement. You have the mergers of the banks, and based on estimates, based on the official estimates, you have around 6 to 7 lakh vacancies at the central government level. And if you look at all the states combined, you have about 38 lakhs vacancies. So first the state needs to first fill those up. Yeah, and and then you'll see that there will be very few people who would be looking for alternative career options like entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is, again, it needs to have a lot of, you need to have a lot of cultural capital, again, and obviously economic capital as well, and that kind of appetite to take risks, because if it fails, then you're doomed. So, and again, the kind of jobs these small scale enterprises generate is, again, very low paying job, and as well as low paying, and as well as very informal in nature. So the long term plan has to be redistribution of resources. And as I've already told you, we are looking at a very unequal society nationally, and as well as within our region. So any kind of reconfiguration has to be done keeping in mind this kind of keeping in mind the redistributive aspects of it. So who will bell the cat? That is again another question.
Thank you. So we just have three questions, because then we'll wrap up. And if other questions come in through the chat box, I'll definitely we'll definitely reach out to you through email. So just three questions, right? It's just small ones. What is the role of the youth in the upliftment of the economy of the Darjeeling district during the lockdown and post-pandemic? I would not be reading the second half of the question because Sir has already given, the suggestions for the upliftment of small businesses and reviving the economy. So, Shireen sir, would you like to answer that?
The role of the youth, I think, you know, I mean, you should you should probably be thinking. You should probably be, the role of the youth. If you want the upliftment of the economy, would be doing a lot of brainstorming and thinking about the inequalities that we have in our society. Thinking about, most people living on the most of the people who are living on the margins with, with incomes, with wages that are even below their subsistence wages, and how we can change the system and how we can overcome it. I think that is the role of the youth right now. And I think I didn't exactly answer what are the views on reviving the small businesses. So again, the only way the small businesses can be revived is if there is demand in the economy. Okay, so this, and that reviving that demand becomes very essential for the for to generate confidence in this small businesses. So again, the demand has to be generated.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. We have two questions left. As RBI decided to transfer 1.76 million rupees to Indian government, so how will it affect the Indian economy?
uh, I think what the RBI did was, it filled in the gap for the loss of revenue that the government faced with, loss of revenue that the government faced due to the decrease in the corporate tax rate. So, the government last year had slashed the corporate tax rate, and it caused a loss of revenue approximately of about $1.76 trillion, and RBI kind of filled in for it, and it led to resignation of the RBI chairman then. But it all depends upon how the government uses this money. Okay, obviously, the government has the right, in a democracy, the government has the right to have this kind of transfer from the RBI. But again, how the government spends this money, only then we'll know what will be its effect on the economy. If the government again spends this money to give out doles to the industrialists and does nothing to really uplift the underprivileged class of the society, then it's not going to have any effect on the economy.
Thank you, sir. Last question. It's from Rani Mishra. So, do you think the West Bengal government gives their 100% for the development of the hills?
I think the present government has been, the present government's agenda has been development of the hills, and I think they have shown a lot of interest, and it's visible in their actions as well. When that 107-day strike happened, and there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of unrest in the region, and so the chief minister, being a lady, she had this courage to come to the hills and tell them, like, I'm she risked her health to come, she risked her life to come to the hills. So I think that also kind of shows that they are interested in the development of the hills. But again, why they're interested in the development of the hills? Because most of the as I said, most of the resources, revenues that we generate in the hills actually gets channelized to the elite, and to the state government. So obviously, and during the lockdown, we have seen a lot of foreign and a lot of outsiders investing in Darjeeling. So you have this Ramada, which has come up in Darjeeling, which is an it is an American international hotel chain, and you have those two resorts in Khoshang, which are owned by outsiders, not from the region. They are from Delhi or somewhere else. So that is, that development is there because you have a lot of potential, And so, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Charin sir, for your wonderful session. I hope our audience did appreciate it. Before we move on to our next session by Miss Shritama Chaudhary, first of all, I would like to welcome Miss Shritama Chaudhary, though she had few technical issues. I would, a little bit of line on what we had. I would like to say, like, when we talk about developments, or when we talk about developments of any sort, and specifically because our topic was related with COVID-19 and its impact on the economic sectors of the hills. But this is just coming from this is my personal opinion. What I feel like is that no matter what sort of development we may encounter with, the government funding it, giving us financial assistance, but I think that development is more to do with one's freedom. And when we're talking about one's freedom, it is not only it's not only that we are talking at par with economic figures. It should be more about being based upon equality as well, based upon being representative as well. So I think we can work a lot on this current topic. And I know, Chiring sir, during this particular phenomenon, it was quite difficult for you to have access to the data as well. But I think sir has definitely done profound work in trying to deliver, provide justice to his theme as well. So thank you, Chiring sir. And let us move ahead with our second session. I would like to introduce Miss Shritama Chaudhary. The theme that she will be reflecting on today will be on digital divide in the education sector in COVID era. Ms. Shritama Chaudhary is an assistant professor of sociology in Ashutosh College, Kolkata. She is a recipient of Sindhya Gwalior Medal and other awards for highest marks in sociology and arts in Calcutta University from Presidency College. She did her post-graduation from Hyderabad Central University. Currently, she's a PhD scholar. She's also vocal about various sociological relevant issues in various academic conferences and non-academic media platforms. I heartily welcome Ms. Shritama Chaudhary to the platform, please. Ma'am, I think if I'm not wrong, you will be sharing your PowerPoint.
Yes, yes, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, just a minute. Good morning. I would like to start my presentation by sending deep regards to the Honorable Principal Sir, Professor Father George Thadathil, the Honorable IQAC Coordinator, the Honorable Head of the Department of Sociology, Ms. Rachel Sittling, the very enterprising co-convener of this webinar series, Ms. Pratisha Diwan, my respected co-panelist, and all my wonderful students of Salesian College, and my dear audience. The topic of my lecture is Digital Divide in the Education Sector in COVID-19 Era. Here I would like to mention that today my lecture is based on my experiential learning as one of the stakeholders of this education sector, that is, as a teacher. COVID-19 has changed the way society used to operate. A pandemic often disrupts the collective's idea of normal and not normal. COVID-19 has forced us to reflect on our everyday lived realities. Indians particularly are used to living in very close quarter, like are used to functioning in close social proximities, crowded buses, crowded streets, and close-seated para-addas in West Bengal. Human touch is something that has always been taken for granted in India. People swarm around Golgappa making one close circle, holding a small katori to fill it with pudina water dripping dirt and sweat-filled Golgappas. Yes, the hygiene never mattered. At present, the the civil society and owning a safe distance from the contagion nature of this pandemic. Till now, the educational institutions were comfortable with teaching a full class in close physical proximity. COVID-19 has disrupted that reality. However, the institution of education cannot stop, and thus the need for adaptation through e-learning. For better developed countries and institutions, digital virtual classrooms have already become the new normal. Many of our esteemed faculties of various institutions have also successfully conducted online classes during the pandemic through various apps like Zoom, Skype, Google Classroom, and WhatsApp groups. While conducting these online classes through these platforms, many of us felt the threat of security and, of course, the homogeneity of access. So in this lecture of mine today, I will try to contextualize this threat in the broader matrix of education, technology, and new normal. Now, before I proceed, I would just like to interrupt and ask whether I'm audible or not, because, you know, sometimes it's very...
Audible. But at
I'm
times,
audible. Thank
yes,
you.
you're audible, but at times your voice is breaking.
Okay, okay. So this is a map of my ideas. Like, this is how I've divided my lectures. So you can see there will be 12 major sections, starting with the first topic, that is COVID-19 and us. From December 2019, the general lexicon has incorporated a new term, and hence the medical world has been introduced to a fierce form of an otherwise not so harmful looking disease, while the globe has been introduced to the near fear psychosis in the form of coronavirus and the resultant disease named COVID-19. So it is not the first time that world has plunged into a dark phase of medical history, since a structurally similar disease can be discerned between the coronavirus and the virus that causes severe acute respiratory syndrome, that is SARS. The outbreak, which took place twice in the year between 2002 and again in 2003. Apart from that, the world has also encountered Ebola virus, the effects of which has remained concentrated mainly in the African countries. But the deadly effect of the coronavirus has been unprecedented, forcing people to be sequestered in order to be safe. It has resulted in the categorical debunking of the saying that man is a social animal by introducing measures like social distancing in the everyday activities. The everyday experiences of the people have undergone dramatic and perhaps permanent transformation owing to the uncontrollable spread of the virus. The threat does not follow any sociological indicator of caste, class, religion, or geographical location. However, the control of it depends largely on the sociological factors like maintaining a strict medically guided social norm and its rigorous follow-up by the social institutions of our society like family, education, religion, economy, and similar others. This is where India faces a large man-made sociological threat of not having a society ready to follow such instructions. For example, it's a very funny example that India is a country where a government initiative like Swachh Bharat is needed to stop open defecation. Thus, the concerned authorities are running from pillar to post, trying to convince these very people that washing hand is a social norm and non-social distancing is injurious to health. So in order to maintain the norms of social distancing, the schools, colleges, and universities are shut across India since mid-March of this year. And education is delivered through various online platforms. Before the COVID era, when students would go to educational institutions physically, there always existed an inequality. There was not a single educational institution where all the students were equal. This inequality was firstly due to the socio-economic status of their parents, geographical location of their homes, and secondly, owing to the meritocracy bent of mind of general public. Certain sections of students were always more privileged than the others. While online education, this inequality, with online education, this inequality became more severe. Earlier, the discrimination was just a matter of dignity and respectability during those school or college hours. But right now, it has become a matter of accessibility, a barrier to gain the knowledge altogether. A lot like our earlier caste system, where a certain section of students were deprived from obtaining education due to their lower rank in caste strata. Ritual purity and upper caste holders were the gatekeepers then. Now it's technology and the technical literacy. This situation isn't just faced by the students and the parent community alone. Many senior teachers without technological know-how are shamed and bullied by students in open platforms. Technology, which is supposed to be a neutral agency, a tool to make our life easier, is unknowingly reinforcing the inequalities which are already present in the physical world. To put it in this way, even in digital world, there exists a margin, that is an outcast. Anxieties about this margin is present amongst all the stakeholders of education, like the students, their parents, and of course, the educational institutions and their teachers. While students and their parents are worried about the future, the educational institutions are worried about how to prepare the teaching modules, the examination process, semester system, checking of answer scripts, conducting of online classes, etc. Even in this procedural and planning process, certain institutions that are privileged to have better resources, like private institutions, are faring better. In order to make a better sense of this picture, let's look into a survey conducted by All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health in collaboration with other esteemed colleges of Kolkata. This online survey was conducted among students currently attending 5 prominent colleges of Calcutta, which are Banipur Mahila Mahavidyalaya, Bijoy Krishna Girls College, Maulana Azad College, St. Paul's College, and Women's Christian College. A total of 2,000 complete information was gathered during 15th to 31st May 2020. Respondent students are mostly from urban and suburban areas of Kolkata. Over 1/3 from regular waged or salaried households, 45% from self-employed households, and 12% from laborer households. They are mainly from Hindu, generally over 70%, and largely 2/3 from lower middle class. That is, family income per month is 15,000 or less. So it is found that Wherever online classes were arranged, 95% students attended that. Participation by students, if online, was 95%. 99% of students who attended online classes, smartphone was a device. 94% students, for 94% students, smartphone was the only device they used to follow the online classes. 48% students were satisfied about online classes. And if I have to divide it within various courses, then within BA, 52% students were satisfied, from BSc, 41%, and from BCom, 22%. Students who faced problems in online classes were primarily because of weak internet connection. That is what 78% of the students cited. No money to buy data card, 14% students problem. 9% of students are suffering from lack of motivation and difficulty in operating, that is 8%. Lack of digital literacy, 6%, and problem in time management, 5%. Worrying about future regarding completion of course, it is evident that 74%, that is majority, is worried about their future regarding completion of course, and 11% is not worried. Very worried level is highest for poorest segment, that is 60%, while for richest it is 36%. Some of the interesting takeaways of this survey are that wherever online classes were organized, most students have participated rather than abstained from it. And another fascinating factor is that non-participation in online classes, it is not highest in the lowest economic category as anticipated usually. It is actually highest in the higher income category or middle income category, that is where respondents' monthly income ranges between 25,000 to 50,000 and more than 50,000. In comparatively lower income group, 12 to 8% students were out of the online classes. This points to a very interesting sociological fact that the willingness to attend is very fierce among the students of the margins, and lethargy or complacency surrounding the availability of technology, and therefore not having the fear of missing out, is very much present among the students who are not belonging to the margins. So we can ascertain that the students of the margin have a psychological fear, have a sociological fear, I would rather say, not psychological, a sociological fear of missing out from the education system. So no matter what happens, they try they try to get access to technology and attend classes by hook or crook and avail education, even if that means that they have to spend almost half of their family income in procuring a smartphone or a data card or a laptop to attend classes.
I think we've lost Shritama ma'am. Shritama ma'am, can you hear us? Shritama ma'am? I request the audience to kindly have patience. I may just have to fix this. Hello?
Hello,
Yeah.
am I audible?
Yes. Yes, now you're audible. We happen to miss you for a few minutes, I think for a minute.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm facing some technical glitches here.
Okay, ma'am.
So what was the last slide number? If someone could help me, where did I leave so that I can pick it up from there?
You were talking about, the participation of the students in terms of the class hierarchy. You were talking about this fierceness of the students to participate. I think you were talking, referring to the, I think, the fourth slide,
Okay,
if I'm not wrong.
okay.
The sociological understanding. You were trying to interpret it.
Yes. So according to the data,
Yes, this was
is
the
my
slide.
slide visible now?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible. You had stopped here.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Um, so as I was saying, according to the survey and according to the data, it is very clear that students who are belonging to the margins of our society have a sociological fear psychosis, the fear of missing out. So so they try their level best to attend the online classes and not to miss it out of complacency, lethargy, or not having the right mood to do the classes. In sociology, we have a concept called center and periphery model, where the center and periphery is a spatial metaphor which describes and attempts to explain the structural relationship between the advanced or metropolitan center and a less developed periphery. So here I would like to take this example and put it in the context of my presentation, where I'm saying that people who are belonging to a more privileged section of our society, that privilege can be in terms of better salary, better geographical location, uh, better everything, better every socio-economic indicator. They are living in the center of our society with ample of resources. They have internet access, they have smartphones, they have knowledge, they have literacy, they have everything. They're sitting on the on heaps of resources. And people, as we move, if you can see the diagram, once we move from the core to the semi-periphery to the periphery, the privilege starts to decrease. So in the center, we have people who are most privileged, and as we move towards the margin, towards the semi-periphery and periphery, the privileges start to decrease, and disadvantages and layers and layers and layers of disadvantages start to increase. So the moment we start moving from the center, we feel that we are obstructed by various social constructs of layers of our society, where sometimes we're devoid of a proper livelihood. We're not getting a proper salary. We're not getting employment opportunities. Where we're not getting educational opportunities, where our educational institutions are not getting enough funds from the government. So this is a situation of our society where the deprived and the people at the margin, they suffer the most, and people who are residing in the center, they try to enjoy most of the resources. Gender and digital divide. While internet penetration has grown across India, thanks to the cheap mobile phones, rural users usually lag behind their urban citizens. Like I mentioned about center and periphery, usually the people who are living in the cosmopolitan cities and the metropolitan cities, they constitute the center of the society, and the rural and the suburb, they try to go to the semi-periphery or the periphery of the society. So the rural population, the people who are in the periphery or in the margins, are more likely to face obstructions, and that is mainly because of their technological literacy and also their economically disadvantaged position. About 30% of the rural population has internet access, compared with more than half of urbanites, according to a survey conducted by one of the leading dailies of India. In large cities, that figure rises to 65%. Cutting through this access is a marked gender divide. Among all internet users, just 35% are women. This digital disparity mirrors other challenges girls face in accessing education. Um, if I have to remind about the census data, then according to census 2011, India has a female literacy rate of 65% compared with a male literacy rate of 82%. India has among the world's largest and highest gender gap in access to technology. Only 21% of women in India are mobile internet users, according to another leading survey conducted by India Today. And am I audible? Hello.
You're audible. Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Only 21% of women in India are mobile internet users, and while 42% of men have access to mobile internet. While there are economic barriers to girls owning a mobile phone or laptop, cultural and social norms also play a major part. The male female gap in mobile use often highlights other inequalities for women, including access to information, economic opportunities, and definitely networking. So, this brings me to the topic of our next slide and discussion, that is intersectionality. Intersectionality is a sociological jargon where we are talking about our experiences in life. Our experiences in life are based on our location within the broader context of social stratification system and various socio economic, psychological constructs of class, caste, religion, race, ethnicity, and gender. The above mentioned different experiences of digital divide faced by female and students of marginal sections of our society is because of this intersectionality of their geographical and social isolation and location. I would like to stop my PowerPoint presentation here because I'm facing some technical glitches and I would rather explain it. So whenever we are talking about intersectionality, we are talking about standpoint theory as well. Am I visible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're clearly audible.
Okay. So whenever we're talking about technological divide, we're always stressing on the fact that certain sections of our society are more privileged to have the access to education through internet. Some people, some sections of our society are always more privileged. And from a sociological point of view, I would like to say that it has always been like this. Our society has a structure of social stratification where we have lot of social constructs like class, caste, religion, gender, race, ethnicity. So in our social stratification system, certain categories are always ranked much higher than certain categories. Like in our gender stratification system, we have we have this heteronormativity in our society where men are always ranked higher. We call this patriarchy. Even the same happens with educational institutions, where certain educational institutions who are sitting on lakhs and lakhs and crores of funds, or private institutions, they're always more privileged than people than institutions who are in the margins of our society. We have big colleges in big cities. They're sitting on funds, and for them it may be easier for them to conduct an online class, an online session. It is easier for them to impart education. But whenever we're going right from the city to the suburbs, to the districts of West Bengal, to the various small districts of India, we are going to colleges that are there in the margins of our districts. We see that they face a lot of constraints, and that is primarily because of their location within this social stratification, that the so much resources are concentrated right in the center of our society, and that is giving the access to the people who are there in the center of the society. So I would like to share one of my experience when I was posted. Now I'm teaching in a very reputed college in Calcutta, but before that, I was posted in a rural college in Malda, in the district Malda, in a very remote area called Samsi. So that was a college, and when I teach students of Samsi College from Malda, I see the fierce enthusiasm of the students, that they want to participate in this rat race. They want to get the equal access to resources, but due to this intersectionality, due to this social stratification system, because they're not located in the mainstream of our society, their struggles are often are often neglected. We were always focusing on the digital divide, that is the digital problem that we face in the prominent locations. We are not talking about the digital inequalities that are there in the margin. And also I would like to mention that there are very very bright examples. I would like to call them as outliers. I recently read in the newspaper that Adivasi teacher from a district was harnessing the radio waves and telecasting live channels, telecasting live educational classes in the TV itself, so the students can learn from that. So this is an example that we must talk about when we talk about digital divide, that in spite of having layers of disadvantages in India, in offline or in online, we still have people who are very enterprising, and they're not really bothered about the layers of obstructions. So they will try to utilize whatever means they get and impart a very good education to their students. And the teacher, the Adivasi, the tribal teacher, who is doing an excellent work of imparting education by harnessing the radio waves. He already has a YouTube channel which has 66 lakh viewers. So he is not only helping the students of his locality, his small geographical locality, but he's also helping students from across India, from across globe, who are learning from him the spirits of entrepreneurship, the spirits of self-reliance, and the spirits of using whatever means we have in order to function from the margins, and not to always feel disadvantageous. So there are a lot of examples we see in the newspapers as well, that people from the margins are doing excellent excellent work, setting examples of creating, of demolishing this technological barriers and imparting education during this pandemic when everything is uncertain. And but so this is one side. So this is one side of the story. But if I have to conclude, then I must say that the existing structure of our society is definitely at fault, and COVID-19 has only showed us what are the existing faults in our structure. It's not that after COVID-19 and after this pandemic and after this lockdown we're suddenly facing this problem of inequality and digital divide. Inequality was always there, digital divide was always there. Even without COVID-19, there were always certain sections of people who were always deprived, and there are certain sections of people who had the benefits of resources, but they were complacent enough. But we are not judging that. But what we are saying is that it's time that we stop this debate about digital divide, and instead look into the broader picture of how to conduct education in a different manner. I would like to pause and borrow certain ideas from Professor Abhijit Pathak, where he said in one of his blogs that we, it is time we question our mainstream education syllabus, our mainstream education curriculum, rather than questioning that whether I can finish, for example, Karl Marx or Max Weber or Talcott Person in a 40-minute Zoom class. I should be questioning, what do they need to know right now? What is the situation of the world outside? We are living in a risk society where we do not know about the future yet. The future is uncertain. The employment rates are rising. Students are questioning about the mainstream ways of employment. Do they have to prepare for their master's entrance examinations? Will they sit for UPSC, WBCS? Will they go for a PhD research? Because right now, future is uncertain. There are, we always see in the newspaper lakhs of unemployment reports are coming up, and right now when we try to concise whatever we know, even if it is about maybe some maths theorem, it can be maybe about a simple chemistry lesson. When we try to concise a big chemistry lesson into this 20 minutes of Zoom sessions and Google Meet sessions and give this to our students, we must stop and ask ourselves that what are we doing? This is our chance. This pandemic gave us a chance to stop and think and introspect that whether we want to continue this mad rat race of rote learning or not. Maybe we should students more about the novels, more about the history, more about the poems, more about the realities of life, maybe the real version. So I think it's time. With experience, I think people can say that we must redefine the idea of education, and COVID-19 gave us a very excellent opportunity to redefine what we give in terms of education. And should we change our perspective towards mainstream education? Because if we are always debating that whether I can fit Karl Marx into a 40-minute session, or if I can send my PPTs in the fastest way, if my students can upload 40 pages tutorial in time, then we are failing. We're failing miserably, because we are again reproducing the same structure that we do offline, and we are not actually creating any change. So I would like to end my topic, my lecture with the Bob Dylan's song, the line that the answer is blowing in the wind. So it's about time that we understand the importance of change, and we understand how to harness the change and talk about the real digital revolution in terms of changing the perspective towards education and changing the idea of education for the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrita ma'am, for your wonderful lecture, which had not only a theoretical perspective to it, but rather more of a pragmatic approach to what you wanted to deliver through your themes. So, ma'am, we do have a few questions for you. One
Yeah.
question stated by Ekta Gurung, she's one of our students.
Okay.
She questions, do you think it's fair for UGC to petition to conduct exams during the pandemic period, owing to the fact that proper knowledge has not been imparted due to the said digital divide, amongst various other reasons?
I would like to say that this decision should have been thought well. Definitely, it is not fair. It is definitely not fair for any authority, be it UJC or state government or any government, be it our own colleges. Whenever we talk about tutorials, when we impose deadlines on our students that, okay, give us tutorials by the end of this month or you won't get the internal marks. So be it any authority, I think right now the idea of examination is very elusive, and when the health condition of so many students are at stake, I think all concerned authorities should have actually thought about it, double thought about it.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got another question from Divyani. She asks, how do we plan to proceed with research and surveys during this pandemic?
See, if you're already enrolled in a research institute, I mean, if you're already a PhD scholar, then definitely you know what to do, because being a PhD scholar, your maximum, if you're from sociology or from social sciences, and I don't know at what stage of research you are, but I think you should focus on your review of literature part, and you should focus on the content analysis part, because right now moving is not possible. Mobility is at stake. We cannot go out and conduct our surveys or interviews or field research. So it's better you read books and do the review of literature part. And for service examinations, definitely, I think you should start preparing, because we can see that the examinations are not going to stop. India is a country where changes take a lot time to happen. So examinations are here to stay. The COVID may not stay for another 2 years. Maybe in next year, by mid-March, we can see that again we are back to the next normal, the earlier normal. And when we are back to the earlier normal, then again the mad rat race will start. So again you will see your friends appearing for UPSC government exams, college service commission exams. So definitely you have to prepare. So right now, if you're sitting at home and wondering what to do about future, please prepare and do your own part, so that whenever the things get back to normal, you can again take the energy and get back into the rat race.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got Shitish Tamang. He asks, what do you think about the new education policy 2020 as to where it can take the Indian education system, including digital education, and the challenges for its implementation?
It's difficult in the challenging in the execution part. It is difficult to do the execution part, but I don't think I'm the competent authority to answer this. It is for the higher authority to answer this question. But definitely it's a new policy. We always have new policies in every session. So let's see. They have just announced, and we have to see for at least 1 year or 2 years to see.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question by Rishabh Jha. He asks, since same policy cannot play the role of boon for all the learners, it even becomes a kind of imprecation for others. Why not, if we segregate learners on the basis of their accessibilities and launch different programs accordingly? What is your angle on this?
Yeah, very good. That's why I talked about the concept of intersectionality, that our life experiences are based on our locations. So definitely one policy cannot serve all. And the language also matters. Like when I used to teach in a very rural college, the language was a big problem. Even if they used to speak in Bengali, the Bengali of that region was very much different from the Bengali that we speak. We know our country India, right? It is very diverse. It has lots of languages. It has lots of um, uh, regional differences. And so homogeneity is never is never a theme in India. We are a group of heterogeneous people, so we cannot have one policy that will serve all. This is the primary perspective of sociology. That's why we have intersectionality standpoint, that we must include the the struggles, we must include the experiences of people of all the regions, so that the stakeholders, all the stakeholders belonging to different regions can benefit from the policies. So what you said is actually a very good proposition, that we must have different programs. But if I see it from an administrative point of view, it is a robust task. India is already a country with so much of population, so much of discrepancies, and so much of corruption. So implementing different programs for different regions can be a huge, robust, and mammoth task. So if the concerned authorities take up this matter and try to do it uh, judiciously, then it will benefit all. But it's a very good idea nonetheless.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question from Rani Mishra, again a student of ours. Do you think the kids of junior school are learning or gaining anything from this online classes? Is it useful for them in any way?
Honestly, they're learning one primary thing, that is the use of technology. So if you see Rani Mishra, Rani, if you see the little kids these days, the little kids, they're very tech savvy. They know Google Meet better than I do. So one thing they're definitely learning is the technological literacy. They're learning the adaptability. So this is something that is very new to them. For us, it is easy to process the social change that is happening around us. But for little kids, it is not easy to process the social change. So they're also going through a lifetime experience. They're seeing their parents not going out. Their parents are working from home. They're not able to meet their friends in the school. They're not able to interact with their teachers. All they see is this screen, and they try to interact through that screen. So they're going, yes, of course they're learning, but I don't know if that learning can be equated with the mainstream learning of, whether they're learning enough mathematics, whether they can calculate right now, whether they can do the multiplication system or the civics, or they can recite the national anthem. I don't know about that. But they're definitely learning the art of adaptability and technology. And I think they are already questioning the future. I think they're learning a lot about climate change.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got one question from Abhilasha Sharma. She asks, what will be the repercussions of intersectionality and digital divide in the post-COVID situation in the education system?
What will be the repercussions of intersectionality and digital divide in the post-COVID situation in the education system? Um, like I mentioned, that intersectionality always ensures that certain section of people are always better privileged, and certain section of people are in a disadvantageous position. So in post-COVID era, when we again go back to normal, so people who were left out due to this intersectionality, due to this social stratification, uh, will definitely face the brunt of it. They may feel that they're lacking back, and there will be negative repercussions, if I have to say. And concerned authorities must look into this.
Ma'am, I wouldn't like to pose this question to you because it is much more to do with the health issues. It's stated by Chiring Dolkar. She asks if COVID-19 test is 100% accurate. I think ma'am is in no position to state give an answer to whether the testing will be 100% accurate or not. So it serves irrelevance for our current topic. So we'll move to another question that's by Nirav Giri. Changes for education and privileges on a widespread scale can only happen when the government decides to do so. However, in from practical point of view, it will take a while. So do you believe that changes in education should start from private institutions?
Not from any one type of institutions. Changes should always start from every stakeholder. So I do not think that only private institutions have the potential to usher in the new changes. There are a lot of government colleges, there are a lot of government educational institutions who are also running at par with the private institutions. So I really don't think only private institutions can bring in change. But what private institutions can do is they can set an example for elite models. Private institutions, if they cater to only a certain section of people, then they will only bring change to that section of people. But government institutions, where we have people from every section of our society coming and joining, government institutions can be a bigger holistic platform, bigger inclusive platform to deliver those changes.
Thank you, ma'am. I think if you can go through the chat box, and Nimisha Benjamin, it is not more of a question, it is more of a suggestion. So if you could read it. She states,
Okay.
online classes widening the digital divide in education. Online class are option very few can afford. Education ecosystem need to be inclusive in the approach and respond from a space of empathy.
Definitely, empathy is a very important point. Like one of the student, when she asked about whether we should conduct the examination or not, I think empathy is what is lacking there. We must put ourselves into the shoes of our students and see from their perspective and empathize with students that we are all going through a difficult time. Even not only students, all the stakeholders, the parents of the students, the teachers, everyone, all the stakeholders of the education system, we are all going through anxieties, and empathy is actually the magic word right now. So empathy is what we need in post-COVID and COVID era.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I think this is all that we have in the question chat box. If we still have some more time, if our audience feels to ask ma'am any further questions, you may do so. Ma'am, I've got one question. Though you did mention about the private versus the government institution, and when we're talking about intersectionality, or digital divide, I feel like this divide is not only on terms of digital, considering this present phenomena, but why is there, most often we see that the private sectors are doing better off than the government, though there are many government institutions which rank which have a really good positions and which are also conducting digital education. But when we see in a very practical manner, we see that private institutions are more indulging into this affair. So my question is, we see digital divide or divide of any form between the government and the private sectors. And why do you think that there's such a divide? Is it because of how a private institution works or is structured based upon the fee structure or based upon its regulation? Could you just throw light? Because I'm really curious, because the way students or people view private institution is something different compared to how we view a government institution. And even to this day, I've got friends who are working as under, they're like government employees. And we see a lot of difference between how we are orienting ourselves as a teacher in this pandemic and how they're orienting themselves as a teacher. I mean, would you just throw a light on that? Because this is baffling. Because you've worked in, a lot of government institutions as well.
Yes, so I've worked with a private university as well and in government institutions as well. And if I have to answer this, then let me break it down into three reasons. First of all, number one, I would like to mention the contribution of popular culture. Our mainstream movies, our tabloids, our magazines, everything, every part of our popular culture has somehow glorified private institution like a Karan Johar movie, like a Woody Allen movie. Like, everything is roses in private institutions. They're very glamorous. They have a work ethic culture and everything. So that has created a perception in our mind. It's like, maybe we can say that it's a take from our capitalist system. That's how the capitalist system sells us the idea of anything private. So this capitalist system has very happily has sold us this idea that private institutions are the place where we must be. That's the epitome of efficiency. That's the epitome of effectiveness, and that's very glamorous, that's very flashy. It's like the McDonaldization, where we go out and see this shopping malls and everything. It's all flashy and it has beautiful colors and everything, so it looks very attractive. So the first point about private institutions is that it's very attractive to the eyes. It has a visual sociology of altogether. It's very attractive. So we're automatically curious. We are automatically curious that what goes inside. So if you take any private educational institution, you will see that, they have big ads. They have a big flashy marketing technique, which definitely we government institutions do not have. And if I have to say it in a light, humorous manner, we all know how government buildings and educational systems look like. So this is one thing, because we human beings, we are very much guided by visuals. We believe what we see. So number one thing what private educational institutions have successfully done is inculcate this idea in our mind that we're all about glamour, flashy, and the new age modern system. So they have somehow equated themselves with the idea of modernity itself. And secondly, private institutions have a very hard technique, technique of paying people as per their work. I used to work in a private bank earlier, and there were always this incentives, remunerations. The more hard you work, the more you can earn. So the system there is not based on something that is already given in a status quo. They're always striving for being more effective and more efficient. So maybe that's why private institutions implement changes faster. They're not lackadaisical or laid back in attitude. And thirdly, that is a very important factor, funding. That private institutions have big donors. So whenever they get the funding, they try to implement it. And I think this is the basic difference that differentiates the private institutions and the government institutions. And most of our preferences for a private institution is it's all there in our mind. We think it's like the it's like the Hollywood. We all want to be. It's like the LA.
Mhm. So, ma'am, we have one question by Nirav Giri. He asks, ma'am, but do you believe that a communist government would be able to bring about education policies better than a capitalist government? That's something.
Well, I don't think I'm the competent authority to talk about that.
But yeah, ma'am, actually, this
Well,
is
this
not
is
your
if
field
you
ideology.
uh, I don't think it has got anything to do with the system. I think it's, see, be it anything, the communist or the capitalist, we will be the stakeholders. So it's up to you and I and the same people. So I think as long as all the stakeholders are working effectively, then maybe you never know. We have to wait and watch. We have to wait and watch for that.
Okay, ma'am, we've got another question from Sophia Rai. She asks, knowledge gap due to this digital disparity, especially when we see situation in hills, that is Darjeeling, Kalimpong, where these online classes has become both boon and ban due to poor internet connectivity. Does it hint at cultural lag? Because in the places where they have broadband internet access are far ahead than the places where it has very weak connection.
Uh, Sophia, it's not only just about Darjeeling. Definitely, Darjeeling, due to its geographical location, is is in a geographical position where internet connectivity can become a problem. Now, we're talking about Darjeeling when it comes to North Bengal. The same can happen to a district of South Bengal, like in Sundarban, where it is currently flooded and there is no internet connectivity. So we are again going back to the center periphery system, where India is a country where this internet connectivity is not equitably distributed among various geographical locations. If we not if we saturate our cities, the so-called cosmopolitan cities, with all the resources, and do not give equitable distribution of the same resources to the regions as we move away from the cities, then there definitely will be discrepancies. Darjeeling may face this problem anywhere. A place which is not even near to the center will face this problem, and definitely in hilly areas this is a major problem because of the geographical constraints. So I think it is up to the government and it's up to the concerned authorities to make sure that every geographical area of this country gets equal access to internet connectivity. See, I'm sitting in Calcutta, and even in this talk, I faced so many technical issues. So you see, internet connectivity is a major thing, and I think it should become a basic right. So you are right, definitely.
There's another question by the same individual again. He says, the era is usually influenced by its artists. So, do you believe that artists and other forms of expression can help bring about change in major ways?
Yes, definitely, definitely. The artists, the intellectuals, everyone, they have a huge responsibility to bring the changes in this society. What we will do without the artists?
Ma'am, one last question is there. Since our childhood, we are bombarded with what to learn as in terms of subjects and the information. What do you think about the how to learn aspect? For example, use of what is this mnemonics. Do you think how to learn should also be taught? What is your outlook with regards to filtering the noise in this era of information boom?
Very good, very good, very good. I think this is a very good point. We are always exactly, we were bombarded with what to learn. You know, we have history, chemistry, physics, maths, but we are never taught how to learn. And you know, I sincerely believe that just reading, writing, sending PPT, reading out from a PPT is not the only way of learning. There has to be a different form of learning. This reminds me of Rabindranath Tagore's Shantiniketan, where he emphasized on learning with nature. Even Mahatma Gandhi emphasized on the same, that we will learn, but not through the mainstream way of rote learning. We will learn with nature. We will learn by creating something. Mahatma Gandhi always used to emphasize on skill training. Mahatma Gandhi used to say that the children must first be taught how to create things, you know, the small craft, so that the children should know the joy of creating. So once you know and understand the joy of creating, that is the time you learn to create. That is the time you actually learn to learn the entire process of education. So I definitely agree with you that we must talk about how to learn rather than just what to learn.
Thank you, ma'am. And adding to that point, I think we need to de-learn certain aspects of our lives as well. And you were referring to 60% of that section from the marginal section who were actually facing a lot of issues when it came to digital learning, and these sections actually belong to the poorest sections. So my question is, although I know very much you are at the budding stage of your work, but if I have to ask you from a personal point of view, what would you suggest, because what if this pandemic continues? What if this phenomena keeps on continuing? So what about these 60% of the worried section of a society who are heavily hampered?
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. I think I'll suggest that teachers. I will borrow this idea from our last commenter. I will take this idea and I will suggest that all the stakeholders must focus on how to learn rather than what to learn, and rather than just memorizing certain aspects of our theories and our syllabus. We must learn to look outside and learn to go with the change. I think right now the syllabus needs a reorientation. This also reminds me that NCRT has recently changed the curriculum that is based that is more adaptable to online teaching. So just the way NCRT has changed the curriculum, I think we all must look into the curriculum and try to make it more dynamic and try to teach our students that how to adapt to this change. If the pandemic continues, I seriously don't want the pandemic to continue, but even if it continues, we must learn to understand our subjects, our very own subjects, from a very different point of view. So even if we are learning sociology and we are talking about Max Weber, then maybe we should learn to understand when Max Weber talked about the calling or the spirit of capitalism, then what does this spirit mean, and how do we inculcate that spirit of entrepreneurship or that calling in our present day time. So right now we have the opportunity to mix both the practical and the theory and apply whatever we are learning. I think right now this is the optimum time, the opportune time for us to implement the changes, and rather than just memorizing, because we do not need to memorize. I think that's a very good thing, that we have taken a break from memorizing. We have taken a break from notes making. We can just look around and get inspired by the changes and the adaptability that is happening. And we must learn to always be ready, because society is all about changes. And that's what our education system must teach us, how to adapt to the changes, how to adapt to the disruptions.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. We've got one last question, after which I will not be taking any of the questions. But if you feel that you've got, your curiosity needs to be feeded, then we are definitely open to your queries, and we'll forward it to our speakers, after which you might just receive, they're willing to, give back the answers to your questions as well. So one last question is there, ma'am. Simon Saurav, he asks, ma'am, do you feel that the kind of government education system Arvind Kejriwal's government has been applying in Delhi might help in the government educational system, which includes the good-looking school building, which might increase the number of students in the school, mainly in the primary education? What is your take on this?
I think good-looking school building can be replaced with more hygienic and clean school buildings. Otherwise, I think that is Kejriwal's model, and that is successful. And we also have the same thing in West Bengal. It's not that it's only Kejriwal's model. In West Bengal also we have a lot of schools which are also good-looking school buildings. But I think what you're trying to mean is that schools which are more clean looking and hygienic, so that students are more comfortable. But I think I would like to emphasize here, from one of my experiences from my rural posting, is that if you want to make schools, colleges, or institutions inclusive, then the process needs to be very stakeholder friendly. For example, people who are the first generation learners, they fear the mainstream educational institutions, they fear to get inside the office, collect the form, because they already lack the knowledge. And most of the times, the people who are handling the persons on the face-to-face basis, they're majorly rude, and they do not take into consideration the fact that maybe these persons are coming from a family where they're the first generation learners. So I think the educational institutions and the entire paperwork, the red tapeism of paperwork, that you have to fill certain number of forms, you have to get it attested, you have to get it stamped, put your pictures and everything. This frightens people who are coming from the margins of our society, who are the first generation learners, or who have very limited idea of literacy and education. So I think our educational institutions, if they at all have to be inclusive, they must be very friendly towards all the stakeholders of the society, so that people are not scared of them. Many a times when someone from a very marginal section of our society comes and wait,
I think we're having few technical issues from the side of Shrithama ma'am.
को कुछ नहीं पता है, तुम जाओ, तुम बाद में आना, you come later. So these are the kind of instances that shape our perception that, okay, this is the government of.
Yes, ma'am, we were having few technical issues from your side, but it's okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible now. Yes. Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My answer was audible?
Yes, ma'am. So, okay, ma'am, I think this was all that we had. If our students are much more interested in knowing on this topic, they might just do so. You can contact us and we can definitely feed your questions back to our resource persons and they will feed it back to you. So thank you, Shrithama ma'am, for speaking wonderfully on this topic. It was quite enlightening as well. Thank you very much, ma'am. May I now welcome Father Dr. George Thadathil, Principal and Rector of Selection College, to provide us with few of his observation for today's session. Father Principal. Father Principal. Father Principal, are you there? Can any one of the admins present out here contact Father? Hello, Father Principal, are you there? So please have patience with us. Father is having few technical issues at the moment. Father Principal is having few technical issues. I'd request our Vice Principal, Father Dr. George Chappakathana, to point out his few observations for today's session.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, Father, I can hear you. Yes, Father.
Yeah.
Yes, Father. I
Hello.
request you to kindly. Yes, Father, I can hear you. Hello? Yes,
Yeah,
Father.
I had to. Yes, hello. Tell me, what I'm supposed to do?
Yes, I request you to, pour out a few of your observations for today's session, Father, before we conclude.
Okay, very good. Thank you for giving me that chance. I was with you all. Both the presentations were very apt and very smartly done. Of course, I would have wished, just like Sritama Chaudhary's PPT, which was very well and very instructive. Our friend um Lama
Chiring Lama, Chiring
uh,
Chobe Lama.
Also had his Sharing Chombe Lama also had his PPT, especially for students to follow. But as he said, in a way, it's better that he didn't tire the system, which is weak in Darjeeling, and we can understand that. But I think it was a very clear presentation, and we went through the a way of looking at what's happening to the economy in Darjeeling. And I liked about the first presentation is theoretical issues that a student of economics, or let's say even political economy or sociology studies becomes relevant and a point of assimilation when it is located. So one thing is to look at, let's say, supply demand as a microeconomics or macroeconomic issue. The other thing is to look at what is supply and demand, whether it is for the homegrown tea or whether it is for the cauliflower in a particular location. I'm just giving an example. So in a way, Chompe Lama's presentation made us to see within a district how the economic and its impact and its transition gets affected. And also liked the kind of questions that came. What can we as youth do? That kind of response coming from a student listening to a talk is very encouraging. So I make a reference to these two. This connect between theory and practice, theory and application. And knowledge, the structure and understanding that we need, and we need constantly to expand that realm of the understanding of where we are, how we are, and why things are the way they are. And that should not remain only at the level of understanding or theoretical clarity, but it should also connect with what can we do about it. And I think this is what links or makes the radical change from being a school student to a college student. Yesterday, just to elaborate, and I hope you all mind me taking a few minutes, I find 118 people listening to me, and I'm honored that there are so many till the end of this session. It's really lovely. So, yesterday, I was addressing nearly 150 commerce students. And who did the webinar? By the students. About what? How the student can, while learning, become an entrepreneur. Saying that though it is by the commerce department, it has nothing to do with only commerce, but anyone can become an entrepreneur if someone has an idea, a creative idea to solve a problem. So I hope you see the two things that I'm trying to talk about. One is if you are a sociology or political science student, deepening your understanding of society, and the other, seeing how it is being applied in concrete situations, whether it is in a district, whether it is in a panchayat, whether it is in one tea garden location that one is, or in one town where, or in one housing colony where one is. And then when this kind of figuring, and then we say we three of us as students can solve this problem. So how even our own students took the initiative, or in Siliguri itself, young entrepreneurs came up to address the issue in these times of how to take care of laundry, a basic, just giving an example. So this kind of linkage between theory and application of knowing and solving a problem with that knowledge is and leading to it is what I liked about the first talk, and more could be said. So thanks to Chombe Lama from my side. Coming to what Dr. Sritama Chaudhary presented to us in the second part of the lecture today, let me preface it by saying that right now, we as an institution and a similarly positioned university, Of course, we have under 2,000 students, but this university with whom we are collaborating has something like 35,000 students in South America, in the country called Colombia, in the city called La Paz. Both are Salesian or Don Bosco institutions. They are also facing the similar situation of converting to or transitioning to online education. And the study is about what are the difficulties that the students are facing over there, over here. So yeah, I was eagerly listening to Sritama's presentation, especially the survey that you did there, or the group associated with you did there for those 4 colleges, including WCC. I know Madam Ajanta Paul, we are colleagues in the association, and St. Paul's and the other Maulana, those 4 colleges. And we did, and some of the students, you yourself, some of you listening to me, also participated in that survey on, how there's a transition to online education, what's the kind of network connectivity, what apparatus you are using. So just to compare, for example, between Calcutta and our situation here, whereas there it was said about 21% and 41%, and 99% using a smartphone to start with, 94% using only smartphone. Here, in our case, of those who participated in the survey, 60% were using mobile, and the other, let's say 5% had real difficulty, and the other 35% would be having access to a laptop or which definitely we know that if you can have a laptop or a desktop with a broadband connectivity, you are much better placed in terms of this learning. And it was very insightful to, the kind of reading that Madam made to say that the digital divide is in a way continuation of the traditional divisions of hierarchy that the society has experienced, especially in India. So having said that, to see some of these things we cannot immediately resolve, and some of these contradictions in society will continue, and these contradictions were there even when society was, the first golden era of the Ashokan empire, or during the Din Ilahi days of Akbar, and the kind of centralization that happened, or during the last 200 years and it's the new transition that we are happening. What we can do, and that's what this presentation did, is to understand again what is happening at this time, from the classroom teaching to this online teaching, who all are coping with it, who all are struggling with it, who all are the beneficiaries, and there again what we can do. So as a student, one could say, and we do know, I know, for example, in the same family, father is a teacher, mother is a teacher, and the son or daughter is a student, and all three, imagine, let's say they have one laptop, or they have 3 phones and one laptop, or 2 laptops and one phone, or 3 phones, but one or the other equipment goes, let's say, haywire, or something happens, or so these kind of, and then imagine if suppose in the neighborhood there's one who is less privileged, and here is the opportunity of sharing. So these kind of stories also we hear, and these are also small ways of addressing the inequality that is on the one side inevitable, on the other side contextually created, and finally it's something that is challenging all of us to respond. The problems cannot be maybe mega, but mega problems or global problems like the kind of pandemic that we are in can only be addressed locally by us, the way it is impacting us, and what we can do to alleviate the impact for someone within our framework. With these few words, and once again appreciating your patience, your eager listening, and the excellent presentations of both resource persons and the very well moderated session. Congratulations to the Vice Principal, the Dean, the heads of departments, and everyone who has been behind this. Bye and cheers. Excuse me, I have to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Father, for your words of appreciation as well as your observation. May I request our Vice Principal, Father Dr. George Champakathinal, to deliver his kind observation for today's session. Father George Champakathinal. Father George Champakathinal, are you there? Seems like we are having issues with his network. Father George Champakathinal, are you there? Kindly have patience with us, just a few minutes, then we'll wrap up. Father George Champakathinal, are you there with us? Due to a few technical errors, we are unable to join with Father George Champakathinal. So as we've come to the end of our session, the final session, I would request Sangam Ghatani, Assistant Professor from the Department of Political Science, to deliver his vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you, Parishta ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Can you continue?
Yeah, okay. So I'll be turning off my video because it may cause some connectivity issues on my side, okay? Good afternoon to everyone. So here we come to the end of our webinar series. I hope that you all had a very enlightening and enriching experience with us these 2 days. Okay, so personally speaking, I would like to thank all our 4 resource persons in helping us to broaden our understanding of the new dimensions that this COVID pandemic has brought before us. However, this webinar would not have been possible without the efforts and encouragements of many. Therefore, I would like to extend our gratitude on the behalf of the Department of Sociology and Department of Political Science to our respected Father Principal of our college, Father Dr. George Taradil, who is also the Chief Patron and the Chairman of the IQSC team. We would also like to thank our Vice Principal of Arts and Humanities, Father Dr. George Chempakathino, who is also a Chief Convener, and also to Father Arju Kurian, who is the Vice Principal of Sciences, as well as our coordinator of the IQSC team. We would also like to thank our Dean of Arts, Mr. Peter Lecha, and my sincere gratitude on the behalf of the organizing team to our resource persons for the day, Mr. Chiring Lama and Ms. Shritama Chaudhary, for accepting our invitation and giving us the valuable time for such academic endeavors. And my personal thanks to all the faculty members of the Department of Sociology and Department of Political Science for laying down the groundwork to make this webinar happen. And also importantly, all the participants, including students, research scholars, faculty members from our college, as well as from other colleges and universities who have registered with us and have come together in these 2 days of our webinar. Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much for joining with us. And lastly, I would like to request all the participants to kindly fill up the feedback form through the link that has been provided through emails. Okay, your feedbacks are very important for us. It will help us to analyze our works. It will also help us as a booster for upcoming events. Okay, so please kindly fill up the feedback forms, as well as I would like to inform that there might be some delay in issuing of the certificates, okay, as our graphic designer is not keeping well with his health. So kindly bear with us, and we will try to provide the certificates as soon as possible through emails. Okay, thank you so much everyone for joining with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sangam Ghatani. Before we wrap up, I request all our participants to kindly turn on their video mode so that we can have a picture together, along with our resource persons. Is Ms. Shritama here with us? Could you please all turn on your videos so that we can have a picture? Vivek sir? Vivek sir?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, video on by you, sir. Oracle?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, you can just take a picture. Cheese. If you're done, you can say it then. Done, sir?
Yeah, it's done, ma'am.
Thank you all for being part and parcel of our webinar, and we are looking forward to organizing a few more if time provides us. So thank you very much,
Uh,
and bye-bye, take
Thank you
care
so
and
much.
stay safe.
Yeah.